All right. Welcome everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Mr. James Carrington podcast. How y'all doing out there? I hope everybody is that's tuning in to watch the show is doing good. You guys are all in good health. Everything is copacetic in your lives. So let's get to it. But before we do that, if you're tuning in for the first time, be sure to hit the like button and also be sure to hit the subscribe button so that whenever I upload, you will be notified of it. Okay, let's try and get as many subscribers as we can. The show is relatively brand new in terms of YouTube content, but for those of you who have been faithful listeners of my show, you've been listening to the audio versions. But as you are aware, I kept telling you guys that I would start making YouTube videos. I don't particularly care for YouTube, um, but it is what it is. Every now and then, as a podcaster, you have to evolve. And so that is what I'm trying to do with the show. It's still going to be predominantly an audio podcast, right? But every now and then I will make a video like I'm about to do now to discuss certain relevant topics, okay, or pertinent issues. So that being said, again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, okay, and try to share the show with as many people, friends, colleagues, and family members, so that we can have a pretty good and solid following. So as you can see behind me, there are so many ways by which you can subscribe to the show. At the very top on the banner is where you can actually get the audio podcast version of the show, okay? So just go to that very top link on the banner in red, okay? And you can listen to the audio podcast. Now the audio podcasts, those are more frequent. I put those out more often, okay? So click on that first. And then if you want to follow us on Facebook too, which I recommend you should, we have a lot of followers on Facebook from all around the world. Uh, that is the name that you want to type in to look for the show. It's the same name you want to type in on YouTube. Obviously, you're watching me on YouTube, so you know that's how you found us. And also, we have a WhatsApp number where um, you can text. Hold on, y'all. My mom is texting me. Let's see what. There is a WhatsApp number that you can text comments and feedback and criticism uh, of anything that I say to me, and that's the number behind you. And the beautiful thing about WhatsApp is because it's web based. You could be living in New Delhi, India, and you can still reach me on WhatsApp. You could be living in Slovenia, and you can still reach me on WhatsApp. That's the beauty of it. Okay, so that is the WhatsApp number. Uh, Text comments about the show to the WhatsApp number and feedback. And also, if there's anything that you would like for me to talk about or you would want my opinions on, that is the number where you can reach me. Okay. We're also available on the Apple Podcast as well as the Google Podcast Store for the audio versions. So it doesn't matter, Android, iPhone, whatever it is you have, you can still get to us. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. Today I'm gonna keep it brief. Okay, I'm not gonna talk too much today. Let me see. Today, the main topic that I'm gonna talk about is the infamous slap that has been seen or was seen around the world. The infamous Will Smith slap that reverberated across the globe. Okay, and before or in order for me to do that, we're going to start with a verse from the Bible. Now, for those of you who are not Christians and for those of you who are atheists and are not spiritual or not religious, calm down, okay? I am Christian by faith, but I'm not a Bible thumper, okay? If you saw the very first video that I made, I was telling you guys that I look to the Bible for inspiration a lot, okay? But um, the Bible is not what I use to explain everything, okay? You have some of these Christians, so-called Christians, that use the Bible to explain everything, even if it doesn't make any sense, right? Well, I'm not one of those, okay? All right. So, but for certain things, okay, for certain things in life, I reach into the Bible uh, and try to make sense of what's happening. And my favorite book in the Bible is the book of Psalms. Okay. My second favorite book in the Bible is the book of Proverbs. Okay. Now, most people who ascribe to Christianity will tell you that Proverbs is the one book in the Bible that is considered by Christians as a guide to life. Okay. Because of some of the sayings that are espoused in that book. Okay, a lot of them are common sense sayings, but a lot of them are very pragmatic sayings. Okay, very pragmatic sayings that you can apply to your life, and when as you're reading through it, it just makes common sense. It just makes sense. Okay, so I was for this whole thing, and again, this is my Bible. Okay, I don't read it as often as I should, but I do read it a lot, as you can tell by the bookmarks in there. Okay, I have a lot of post-it notes in there, and I have a lot of bookmarks. If I read or I come across something that I think, a statement or a story that I think is relevant or makes sense, I will bookmark it. So for this particular episode, right, for this particular subject matter, I looked in the Bible and I looked through the book of Proverbs. And the reason why I did that is because when it comes to the topic of marriage, if that's what you want to call it, when it comes to the topic of marriage, when it comes to the topic of man and wife, or husband and wife, the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about it. And the things that are said about the dynamics between a husband and a wife in the book of Proverbs, they're not these long, drawn out sentences, okay? They're very short and succinct and precise statements about how life should be between a husband and a wife, okay? And they're scattered all over Proverbs, okay? So, a very good example, and some of it is repetitive. That is what I found interesting. Some of it is repetitive, okay? So, for instance, gotta switch out glasses here. You know, my old ass. Let's see, gotta put on the reading glasses. Okay, so for in the book of Proverbs, for instance, Proverbs chapter 21, verses 9 says, "It is better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman." Now that is pretty self-explanatory, okay? And that's Proverbs 21 verses 9. Basically, all that says is stay away from a woman who's full of drama, okay? If you're a man. Now peep this. Just 10 verses down the line. Only 10. Proverbs 21:19, it says, "It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman." Okay? So basically, Proverbs 21 keeps emphasizing this whole notion of, look, it's better for you to do it, to go alone than to be with a woman who is bitter, is angry, is contentious, or, basically brings drama to your life. Okay? Now, let's see. Another verse, Proverbs chapter 25. Okay? Proverbs chapter 25, verse 24. It is better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. So this whole notion of, you know, as a man, as a husband, you have to go it alone than to deal with a female who's going to bring angst to your life. The Bible is pretty much, it looks like the Bible, especially the book of Proverbs, if as a Christian you're going to use the book of Proverbs as a manual to life, Proverbs is big on that. Okay, it's big on that. You don't need the drama. Okay, it's better to be alone by your lonesome self than to be with a female if she's going to bring drama to you all the time. Okay, now there can be, I think what the verses are saying speaks more to the character of the female that you're with, more so than what it is she does on a day to day basis with you, right? Because it says that it keeps using those adjectives, contentious, 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 right? And as an adjective that describes the nature of the female that you're with, okay? So my point is, they're saying, the Bible is saying that you could be with a female who's a good female, is not contentious, okay, is not angry, um, but every now and then she might bring some drama, which, you know, again, that is just some of the things that uh, uh, are weaved into the tapestry of the background of marriage, right? So the Bible is not saying that don't deal with women at all, okay? What it is saying is, if the woman that you're dealing with, the woman you consider to be wife, okay, has certain adjectives that can be used to describe her, and one of those adjectives being contentious, well, stay away from her as far as possible. That's what the Bible is saying. All right. So in essence, again, to summarize, Proverbs is telling you as a man, even if you don't ascribe to Christianity, and this is just plain common sense, right? Whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Hindu, whether you're an atheist, as long as a man you decide to enter into this institution we call marriage, the end goal of marriage is to be with someone who is not going to make your life miserable. Okay? Someone who is always going to be there for you. Someone who is basically going to bring you peace of mind. Someone who is not going to encumber you with their problems and drama and all sorts of things that will basically take away your peace of mind. Now, watch this. So, again, Proverbs as a book in the Bible has 31 chapters, okay? Now, those 31 chapters cover a whole range of topics. Everything from how, as a man, you need to keep your emotions in check, you know, to dealing with a woman, to dealing with immoral women, to dealing with your neighbors, like rules and regulations that you should apply to your life in order to make your life easy, okay? 31 chapters covers a wide and diverse array of topics, okay, in the areas of life, or in the different areas of life. But keep this, and this is what I found interesting. Chapter 31, which is the last chapter in the book of Proverbs, solely deals with marriage. Okay? Chapter 31, which is the last book of Proverbs, the guide for the Christian man or woman, okay, as to how they should live their life. This book of Proverbs is the template for how, as a Christian, if you want to live your life, you should follow the rules, the simple rules in this book. Okay? Now, these are not the Ten Commandments or whatever, but I'm just saying, these are like day to day common sense anecdotes and advice that this book is giving you if you consider yourself to be a Christian, right? Little bits and pieces of advice that you need to adhere to in order to make your life comfortable, right? This book dedicates the last entire chapter solely to the issue of husband and wife. More specifically, it highlights the attributes of what would be considered a good wife. The whole chapter 31. And so I thought it was interesting that, you know, for a book that has all this advice, that it would end on that note. You understand? And so I took the liberty of highlighting a few of the verses in there, and I wanted to share them with you. Okay. Now again, this has nothing really to do with me being a Christian or whatever. This is just again common sense knowledge that is applicable to every man on the planet, regardless of what religion they ascribe to. Okay? So, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, again, this is the last book in the book of Proverbs, okay? The last chapter, all right? It says, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read a few verses that I highlighted. All right? The words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. Verse 3. Do not give your strength to women, nor your ways to that which destroys kings. Now, this is a mother advising her son. I don't know who this King Lemuel is. He's probably one of the many kings in the Old Testament. But this is his mom giving him words of advice as to how to navigate his relationships with the female gender. She says to the son, do not give your strength to women, okay? Nor your ways to that which destroys kings. Now, you can interpret that whichever way you want, but to me, it's self-explanatory, okay? It basically says, do not give of your time and your energy and your effort and your resources and everything that makes you strong as a man. Do not give it away to a female. Now, what makes a man strong? The main thing that makes a man strong is not his physical prowess, okay? It's his mind. You understand? A man's mind is what makes him strong, in my humble opinion, okay? A man's mind is what makes him strong. Not sheer brute, not sheer physicality, not, being able to pick up or bench press 500 pounds. That is not what makes a man strong. It makes you physically strong if you can do those things. But in the grand scheme of things, what makes a man, in my opinion, strong, what gives a man strength, where he draws his strength from, is his mind. Because with the mind, a man can accomplish whatever he sets his mind to. You understand? You need your mind to tell you, if you're weak, that you need to exercise so that you can be able to bench press starting from 80 pounds to 300 pounds. You need your mind to tell you that. You need your mind to tell you if you're not doing well in a specific area in life, that you need to strengthen that part, either by going to school, by getting trained, by getting a mentor, by doing whatever it is you need to do in order to strengthen that particular aspect of your life, okay? You need your mind to tell you, if you're broke, that, hey, maybe being broke is not cool. I need to go get me 4 jobs, like Boss Mac would say. I need to get me 4 jobs so that I can bolster my finances. Okay? So, here is a mother, a queen mother, advising her son, and she says to him, she says, do not give your strength to women. do not give your strength to women. And the message is so poignant that it is in one of the oldest books in the world. Okay? Let's continue. The other verses that I found interesting. Now, this one is one that a lot of Christians like to quote when it comes to marriage. As a matter of fact, this particular quote has been used in probably used in about 9 out of 10 Christian weddings, okay? Verse 10. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubles. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now, let that sink in for a minute. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubles. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now, let's fast forward to some of the later verses. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. Her husband also, her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now, let's analyze chapter 10 a little bit, okay? Again, this is not meant to be a Bible study session, okay? I'm just laying out all these verses from the Bible and these statements to make a larger point later on in the show. Who can find a virtuous wife? Okay, that is the first question posed. Who can find a woman that is full of virtue? A woman who a man can look at and say, you know what, this woman is 1 out of 1,000. This woman is a needle in the haystack. This is it for me, right? You know all the expressions that as men we use when we think we have finally found the one. When you call your friends and you tell them, you know what, dog, I said I'm never going to get married, but this girl that I've been kicking it with for a few months now, yo, I think she's the one, yo. And usually men say that because they have seen something inside that female that they're dealing with. They have seen something that is of substance. They have seen certain virtues that are worth extolling. Okay? And so the Bible asks, who can find a virtuous woman? Now, what might be virtuous to one man might be, or virtues might differ from man to man, but we can all, as men and women, agree that there are certain virtues that are universal. Nobody's going to marry a serial killer and think, or meet a serial female killer and think, yeah, oh man, she's the one, man. The way she took them guys out and buried them in her basement or in her backyard or in her septic tank, I think she's the one for me. No one is going to say that. No one is going to come across a female that has, been promiscuous all her life and say, you know what, man, she's been ran through by a gang of dudes, so I you know what, she's the one for me. No man is going to say that. But a man is going to come across a female that maybe can cook, has his back, and all those other things that, overall society may consider as positive attributes in a female and say, I have found mine. You understand? So I say all that to say this. I thought it was ironic that this book in the Bible, which is supposed to be, uh, again, a manual to life, would end or would climax or would have its seminal moment, if that's what you want to call it, in teaching you about what it is that a wife, a good wife, should be. I thought it was ironic that it should end its note on telling you that these are the things you need to look for in a wife. These are the things, or these are the characteristics that if a woman is displaying all these characteristics, this is what makes her a virtuous woman. This is what we would classify or define as a good wife. And in spite of the fact that it's coming out of the Bible, I'm sure all the characteristics that are used to describe what a good wife is in this chapter apply across the board. Whether the person reading it is Hindu, is Muslim, is Jewish, is atheist, is Buddhist. These are all the things that a man, if they saw in a woman, would say these qualities, because she possesses these qualities, make her a good candidate for wifey. Okay? All right. So what basically what am I getting at? When Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, first of all, let me be the first to say I didn't watch the Grammys, okay? I don't watch award shows. I don't watch beauty pageant shows. I don't watch any of those things because, in my opinion, you watch one, you've watched them all, okay? When I was a teenager, yeah, I would watch shows like that. When I was a teenager, I used to like watching beauty pageants because, of course, I'm a guy and you had beautiful women parading around. So, yeah, I would watch that stuff, right? But as I became a little older, it's like, you've seen one, you've seen them all. I could watch a Miss Universe and I couldn't differentiate between Miss Universe and Miss World and Miss Africa, and it was just too many of them. And again, like I said, to me it became, you've seen one, you've seen them all, right? So I didn't watch the Grammys. I didn't watch the Oscars. So I woke up the following day to hear that I think I went to Wawa to get my coffee, my morning coffee, and I saw on what they had the newspaper there that had the picture of Will Smith, going like that, and Chris Rock going like that, and they were like, "Oh, the slap or whatever." And so as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that must have been like like a prank or whatever," because in my mind, I was thinking about Will Smith, and I was like, yeah, Will likes to, kid around like that. He likes to, have pranks on his movie sets, and because I've seen behind the videos of Will as he's making a movie, okay, and he does things like that, okay. He does pranks in between takes, okay. He does pranks in between movie sets and stuff like that. And just knowing the kind of guy that he is, he's jovial, he's comedic. We all know him as a good guy. I was like, oh man, that had to be a prank, right? I didn't really think that it was an actual, slap. I thought it was a skit for the Oscars. So in my mind, I'm thinking he's a comedian. Chris Rock obviously is a comedian. So I thought it was something that the two of them had planned and acted on, and it was part of the show. So I'm telling people on my Facebook feed, I'm like, that whole thing was a prank. You guys aren't really taking it seriously. This is before I actually saw the video. And everybody kept telling me, they were like, nah, James, we think this was the real deal. We think, and then people started talking and talking. And still, all day, I did not watch the video, right? It was later in the evening, after I saw that the Academy had issued a statement saying that they were considering disciplinary action against Will, that I said, hey, you know what? let me go check out this video. Let me go see if, let me go check out the video and make my own judgment, and see what the optics of the video revealed to me, right? So I went and looked at the video, and I was like, wow, he really did slap the crap out of Chris. You understand? And even at that, I was still a little skeptical, because if you guys see the video, after he slapped Chris and he was walking away, he kind of had like a little smirk on his face, right? And you're like, but then when he went and sat down and Chris was talking like, yo, why did you do that and stuff like that, and Will was like, keep my wife's name out of your mouth, and he said it twice, that's when it dawned on me that, oh, this dude was serious. He really meant to slap Chris. So the question then becomes, was Will Smith justified in doing that? Was he justified in slapping Chris Rock? And this is where not just the nation of America, but it seems like the whole world is divided, okay? Because there are people that are saying that, yes, he was justified in slapping Chris because Chris, quote unquote, insulted his wife, which that is an extreme word to use. Chris did not insult Jada. Okay, he made fun of Jada. He poked fun at her because he's a comedian. That is what he does. That is his profession. His profession is to make light of things, no matter how serious they may be. Okay, he's a comedian. He's allowed that. And so there were people that were like, well, Will was defending his wife's honor. Was defending his wife's honor. Okay, as a husband, yes, you're supposed to defend your wife's honor. But in this particular instance, in this particular case, there are a couple of questions that I would like to ask Will. If he truly was defending his wife's honor, there are a couple of questions that I would like for Will to answer. And I'm sure all of us would like to hear from Will the answers to some of these questions. The energy that he used to slap Chris because he thought Chris was disrespecting Jada, where was that same energy when Alcina, whatever, Augustine Alcina, or whatever his name is, that young kid who had an affair with Jada and made a song about it, where was that same energy when he came out with that revelation? You're there, you're a big time movie superstar, and some kid nobody knows. Clearly, I would have never heard of August Alsina if it wasn't for him coming out and saying that he slept with Jada. And this kid comes out, this obscure, no one knows artist comes out and says, I slept with your wife. Most husbands would take umbrage with that, which clearly Will did, because he was crying on Jada's show later on when she actually publicly took him onto her show and humiliated him in front of the whole world. He was crying. He took umbrage to that. Where was that same energy, Will? The second question is, would Will Smith have taken to that stage if Chris Rock was The Rock? You guys know, the other actor, The Rock, the big dude. If he was the one hosting the Oscars and he was making fun of Jada, would Will Smith have stepped on that stage? I don't know. Something tells me he wouldn't have. And so, right then and there, you realize he picked on Chris because he knew Chris is a small guy, right, compared to Will. And Will knows that Chris would not be able to fight back or would not be able to go toe-to-toe with him. So he picked on Chris. Okay? To me, that's what that was. He picked on Chris. And to me, that was not fair. That was dishonorable. It made me lose tons of respect for him, and I don't buy into the notion that he went on that stage to slap Chris because he was trying to honor his wife, or he was protecting his wife's honor and dignity. I do not buy into that. I think he did it because of his ego. I think he did it because people had been clowning him for almost 2 years now. People have been clowning him, questioning his manhood, questioning his masculinity, and so he had had enough. And so Chris, being low hanging fruit, because that's what it was, he took to that stage and decided to put hands on Chris. And in my opinion, he picked the worst time to do it. He picked the worst time to exhibit that kind of behavior. You know, as men, every so often in life draws you out and asks you to prove your masculinity, asks you to prove that you're a man, okay? And this is one of the trappings of being a man. Because it is incumbent upon you to know that when life calls on you and tells you to act as a man, whether you should act on it or not. There are moments in life when you'll be called upon to prove your manhood, but you don't necessarily have to respond to the call. You don't necessarily have to do anything because it's a trap. Okay? And I say that because the kind of behavior that Will exhibited on stage this weekend is the type of behavior that has landed a lot of men, especially in America. A lot of men, especially my brothers, black males, in jail or in the grave. Okay? Whenever life calls upon you as a man, especially when a female is involved, that you have to prove something, that you have to prove that you're a macho, that you have to prove that, hey, wait a minute, you can't be talking to my girl like that. You can't step up to my girl like that. I gotta do something. I gotta prove to my girl that I ain't no punk. I ain't no this or that. There are a lot of men in jail because they chose the wrong time to respond to that call. The call to manhood, or the call to prove your manhood. You understand? Will got called out. Life called Will out on that stage a couple days ago. And he should have rejected that call. He should have rejected that call, or he should have picked up the call later on. It's just like a phone call. Someone calls you right now. Let's say I'm doing the show. Somebody calls me right now, right? I can look at my phone. I can choose to pick up the call. Or I can look at it and be like, you know what? Not right now. I'll call them after the show. I'll call them later. That is what happened. And Will made the mistake of picking up the call at the wrong time. Because the way he handled that situation could have been handled a whole lot better. He could have handled it backstage. Pulled Chris to the side and be like, look here, man, I don't appreciate what you said about Jada. Now, you know she's going through some things. You know she's going through that alopecia or whatever. She has alopecia or whatever is making her lose her hair and all that stuff. You know all that stuff. Why you had to bring that up, man? You could have run this by me before going on stage. And again, this is just my humble opinion. There are times when life will call you out as a man and you have to respond immediately. You have to respond immediately. But more often than not, I would say maybe 8 out of 10 times, When life calls upon you to prove your manhood, you don't have to answer the call right then and there. You can answer the call later, and you will be all the better for it. So, back to what I was saying. A lot of men in jail and in the grave for the same kind of behavior that Will exhibited. You got to understand. Someone might say, well, that's a little drastic. I mean, people that are in jail clearly, you know, I mean, Will is not going to jail for slapping his fellow actor or comedian. Well, that's because that was, what happened occurred in a controlled setting. Now, if you take that same scenario and you put it out there on the streets, okay, gunplay would have been involved more than likely because that's what you see in the streets. There was no gunplay here, and the violence didn't escalate because this all happened in a controlled setting. This was a black tie event. This was, so there are levels to this stuff. But my point is, the behavior that Will exhibited is the same kind of behavior that has landed hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of men in jail or in the grave because they felt they needed to prove their manhood over a female. And a female who wasn't worth it. Do you all understand? Years ago, maybe about 6 years ago, I remember one time my wife came home. My wife is a nurse practitioner. My wife came home. At the time, she was a nurse. She was working in this one hospital. And there was this one doctor in there. One time she came home and she was like, talking about how the doctor was, that one doctor liked to give her a hard time whenever they would work on the same floor. He would say little disrespectful comments, not necessarily aimed at her, but you could kind of tell he was talking about her in a way. So the first time she told me that, I was like, okay, well, she's, he's having a bad day or whatever. We'll just, whatever. I just told my wife, because my wife didn't make a big deal out of it. She was just telling me what happened at work that day, okay? Fast forward to like 3 months after that, she comes home and she tells me that she worked with the doctor again, that same doctor. He was working on her floor. So she's like, she did something. She made some sort of mistake. It wasn't like a grave mistake, a big mistake or anything. It was just more like a little error, right? And the doctor chanced upon it and started going on and on about how people in general or how the nation as a whole is just getting dumber by the minute because Obama is president. Obama was president at the time. So clearly this guy was one of those anti-Obama guys, right? And so he kind of, so basically, again, he didn't come out and insult my wife, but he made general blanket statements, okay, in which he invoked Obama's name. He used the word stupidity. And my wife is the only black nurse that was working on that floor, okay? So clearly, he was low-key dissing my wife. So when my wife told me that, I kid you guys not, my first instinct, or the first thing that came to my mind was, you know what? I need to go buy me a ski mask. And I need to go rent a car. Go get one of my firearms. Well, not mine, but there are ways to get firearms off the street. And let me hit up one of my boys and let's go get this dude, man. Let's go do surveillance on this dude. I'll wait for a day when my wife goes to work, and I'll call her just out of the blue, like pretending I'm checking up on her, and ask her if that one doctor is there. And if she says yes, hit my boy up, go to the hospital, go where the doctors park, and go do something to this dude. That is what came to my mind. You understand? Because again, it is natural for a man as a husband to want to protect your wife's honor. But you have to realize that there are times when you do have to act upon that, especially if you think that your wife is in danger, okay, or is going to be hurt some way, somehow. It doesn't even have to be physically, it could be emotionally. Then you, as her husband and as her protector, need to act on that. You need to act as a barrier between the harm that seeks to befall her. Now, that is where, again, your mind comes into play, because you have to put all the data that you've gotten. You have to put all the information that you got into your mind, process it, and think, okay, these actions that I seek to undertake, right, to mitigate this harm, quote unquote, harm that I think is coming towards my wife, do the actions, do the benefits outweigh the danger, right? Do the benefits outweigh the risk? You understand? You as a man have to make that decision. And you have to make that decision based on careful consideration of the data that you have. So a very good example is, for instance, if my wife came home and she said, and again, my wife wasn't making a big deal out of this, because for those of you who know my wife is very mellow. My wife is very chill. My wife is like the mellowest female, well, in my opinion, that you will ever find. That's one of the reasons why I married her, okay? Very feminine, very soft, not aggressive. She's not a pushover. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying she's very feminine, okay? So everybody that meets my wife, she has this comforting and calming presence about her, okay? So my wife wasn't making a big deal out of what happened at work. But me as a man, my ego immediately kicked in. And I was making a big deal out of it. Like, man, I need to go find this mug, get him behind a dumpster and put a gun in his mouth and whoop his ass and do something to him. Evil thoughts immediately clouded my mind. So I had to sit back, think about it. But then when I saw the reaction from my wife and I realized my wife wasn't, then I let it go. And I didn't tell my wife that those were my intentions. I didn't tell her up until like maybe a year and a half ago. One time we were sitting there, we were talking about something, and I told her, remember that one doctor that used to give you a hard time at work? And she was like, oh yeah, what about him? I was like, do you know that I was actually thinking about coming onto your floor, coming to your hospital and doing something to him? As a matter of fact, this is what I had in mind. This is one of the things that I had in mind, because I could either go the very extreme route, or I could approach it in a sensible manner, right? If my wife, I was waiting for a third time. I was waiting for my wife to come to me a third time and say this doctor was still doing something to her. And this is what I was going to do. I was going to go one day while she was working. I was going to get two big two big cups of hot coffee, very hot coffee, right? Go up to her floor, see her, talk to her. My wife doesn't even drink coffee, but I'll for just for the sake of this, I would get 2 cups of very hot coffee. Go to her floor on a day that I knew he was working, and after going to the floor, scoping out the area and seeing where he was, I would wait for him to, because when you go in the doctors, they're walking on the floor, the doctors and nurses, they're going back and forth. And I was gonna bump into him and spill the hot, accidentally spill one of the trip and spill one of the hot coffees all on his white coat and on his lap, all up in his chest, face, and everything. And then I was gonna wait for him to react to that. And his reaction would then give me an excuse to do something to him. That is what I had in mind. Okay, because right then and there, it wouldn't be thought of as, oh, he came in here premeditated, thinking he was going to beat up someone. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, the courts of public opinion would be in my favor, because it would be like, well, the guy bumped into you accidentally and spilled. Yeah, the coffee was hot and he spilled it all up in your face. But you didn't have to use the N word or do something or call him. You know what I'm saying? So if you got your ass whooped, you got your ass whooped. And that's what I was going to do. But, again, my wife never came back to me. There was never a third incident. So I told her that. And she looked at me like, you're crazy. You would actually do that? I was like, I was thinking about it. Anyway, so I say all that to say this. As men, there are certain questions we have to ask ourselves. Okay? As protectors of our family. And for the sake of this discussion, as protectors of our wives and our spouses, when do we resort to violence and when do we use diplomacy? Because that is something that will come up. As long as you're married to that woman, one day somebody might step up to you or somebody might do something around her that you might think is disrespectful to her. When, as a man, do you resort to violence? Or when do you resort to diplomacy? And I would like to get some feedback from the men. If any of you that are watching this video, if you've ever been placed in a situation whereby you had to resort either to violence or diplomacy, let me know. Put it in the comments section or send a voice note to the WhatsApp number and I'll play it on the next show. Another question that as men we need to ask ourselves is the female in your life worth resorting to violence for? Is she someone who you're like, you know what? I will kill 1,000 men. I will maim and injure hundreds of men because this woman is all that. She is worth it. Because when I look back on her body of work and all that she has meant to me and all that she has done for me to get to the level that I am today, I will kill 1,000 men. I will maim and injure 100 men just for her. Lately I watch DJ Vlad on YouTube. I watch a lot of DJ. Big shout out to DJ Vlad. I know he doesn't know me. I don't know him either, but I watch his show. And lately one of the recurring episodes one of the recurring topics that a lot of people have been talking on DJ Vlad's YouTube channel is the Tupac and Biggie murders, right? So there's this one guy whose name came up. He used to be a bodyguard for Puffy. His name used to be Wolf. This Wolf was a big guy, strong guy in the streets, not a guy you want to mess around with, right? That type dude. He was security for Puffy. And this was back in the 90s. So Wolf, apparently he was a strong guy. He himself had a couple bodies on him. He allegedly had killed some people in the past. But basically, the guy was a tough guy. You didn't want to mess with him, right? So his name has come up in quite a few Vlad TV interviews, right? So I decided to look him up. Now, Wolf got killed in Atlanta back in the 90s. And again, it was over a female. You understand? And so when I was putting together this show, he came to mind when I went, the question of how many men are in the grave because they wanted to flex over a female. You understand? Now, this was a guy who was tough, strong, physically. I mean, you didn't want to tangle with him. And yet he made the fateful mistake one night of trying to defend. And interestingly, he wasn't even trying to defend the woman's honor. He was just trying to show how strong he was or how tough of a guy he was. And based on the interviews that I have watched on Vlad TV, a lot of people told him that night, dude, no, just let it go, because he had been drinking, they were in the club. He didn't listen. He went out there, got his guns, and was waiting. And it was him and another guy who I don't know much about. They both got killed that night. And all for what? Because a female that he used to supposedly mess with, he had seen that female in the club with another guy, and the female went and touched his hat or pushed his hat away or something. He snatches up the female, like, the fuck you think you're doing? Oops, I hope YouTube doesn't censor me. So they get into it, and security comes, they bounce him, they throw him out of the club, and he's fuming, he's angry. So he goes out there, gets his gun, sits on the hood of a car and is waiting for the people that pissed him off to come out. And sure enough, they came out. This is an example of life came knocking or came ringing the phone that day telling you to prove your manhood. Now, Wolf could have ignored that call that day, but he chose to pick up. And it did not end well for him. So as men, when do we become when do we actually, resort to violence, or when do we use the whole diplomacy thing, or when do we walk away, basically? There's a gentleman who lives not too far from my house. He used to come to my store. He used to be a prison guard. Big dude. We'll just call him Mr. W. Mr. W, he's older. He's probably like in his... Mr. W is probably like in his mid-50s. Now, you can tell Mr. W, I mean, he was a prison guard. You can't be a weakling and be a prison guard, okay? So, Mr. W, he's always... He lives like I can see his house from my house, basically. So every now and then I'll go up there and talk to him. And I remember years ago, me and him were talking, and he was like, man, James, you won't believe the number of men that are sitting in jail that I talk to all the time, young men. They keep bringing them in, and they're all coming in because they killed some guy over a female. He was like, you will not believe the number of men that are coming to jail because of a female, because of a woman. And now that they're in jail for life, now they can talk to him because apparently he was one of the prison guards that was likable. They talk to him, and he was like, not a single day goes by where one of them won't come up to him and tell them, you know what, If I could turn back the hands of time, if I could turn back the hands of time, I would have done things differently. But it's too late. You understand? It's too late. Here you are sitting in jail. You're looking at a 50-year bid, 50 calendars you're looking at. Meanwhile, the female that you killed another man over, she's out living her life, more than likely with another dude while you sit in jail. She's giving the nookie to another dude while you're sitting in jail. So I ask again, as men, as husbands, when do we resort to violence? When do we resort to diplomacy? Or when do you just walk away? If you feel that your wife has been slighted or disrespected. If you're not married to the woman, I don't even think I should include you in the equation. If you're not married to her, if she's not someone you can call your wife, you've been going out for a few months, you've been dating for a few months, and you think someone disrespected her, or she comes up to you, because you know a lot of females like that too, the ones who like the drama, the contentious ones that the Bible was talking about. They'll come up to you, some guy did that and did that and did that to me. Are you gonna go out there and do something to him? If you're not married to her, you shouldn't even be thinking about doing anything. You should not. You gotta ask yourself, the woman you're with, has she proven her salt? Has she proven her worth? You willing to resort to violence for her? Is she willing to do the same for you? That is a question you will need to ask yourself. You willing to resort to violence? Is she willing to do the same for you? More than likely, you will find out. More times than not, she won't. She will not. And so, in Jada and Will's case, I look at everything that has happened between the two of them, all the news and controversies that have surrounded them over the past year and a half, from the time she came out with the whole entanglement story, to Will writing his book, talking about how he has never felt that Jada looks at him the way he really wants her to look at him. The Tupac angle. You ask yourself, was it worth it? Clearly, Will loves Jada more than Jada loves Will. Everybody can see that. Everybody can see that. Except Will. Well, maybe he can see it too. That's why he's acting out like that. But in conclusion, I say Will did not handle this situation well at all. He acted emotionally. He acted egotistically. The evidence is clearly there. And this is what the evidence shows based on the videos that we've seen. Indecisiveness and inner conflict. Because when Chris was cracking the jokes, when Chris started cracking the jokes, Will was laughing. He was laughing. So how did he go from you're laughing 1 minute, then your wife whispers something into your ear, and then all of a sudden now you convinced yourself that you're angry, So angry to the point that you have to go on stage and slap another grown ass man. That points the inner conflict that is within Will right now as a husband. And he needs to come to terms with that. He needs to accept that. And he needs to find a way to battle those inner demons and that conflict, that internal conflict. And if it means that he needs to get away from Jada, if it means that they need to divorce, he should go ahead and do that. What else do we have? Again, Chris is a comedian. Comedians are allowed or are given leeway to talk about things that are taboo in a safe place. Will, as a fellow comedian and an actor, should know this. It's not like Will himself hasn't made fun of people before. Maybe not on camera. You understand? And the third thing that I asked, if Chris Rock had been The Rock, would Will have been up there on stage? No. So he did this purely based on ego and for show, and it was totally unnecessary. He picked on Chris Rock because Chris Rock was low-hanging fruit. And for me, that is what makes me lose my respect for him. Because his actions weren't done or weren't coming from a place of conviction. They weren't coming from a place of authenticity. And they weren't sincere. And I'm sure even Jada knows that. I'm sure Jada in her mind was like, yeah, I told you to go smack Chris Rock and you went and smacked him, but he's just Chris Rock. Next time I'll pick a bigger target and see if you're gonna really do something. Because in her mind, I'm sure she's probably trying to think, what if this was Tupac sitting here? What would Tupac have done? And for those of you who keep asking, why do I keep throwing Tupac into the mix? I'm not gonna get into all that. Just go online and just go Google. Just go online or go on YouTube and type in Jada, Tupac, Will Smith, and you will understand what I'm talking about. In a nutshell, Tupac and Jada, way back in the day, were friends that were on their way to becoming lovers. Somehow that didn't work out because of external influences. So, in summary, I think this whole incident was a teachable moment for husbands and wives across the world. When you guys were getting married, and I'm talking to the married couples here, you took some vows. It's time to ask yourself some hard questions. No matter where you are in your marriage, whether you're newly weds or you've been married for 20 years, it is time for you to ask yourself some hard questions. And it is time for you, quite frankly, to revisit your vows. Do you see any cracks in your marriages? Have you started taking each other for granted? Is either one of you still hanging on to someone from the past, a blast from the past, and can't let go? Do you feel internal conflicts when it comes to your interaction with your significant other? these are questions that from time to time, I think that those of us who are married need to ask ourselves. And if we don't, you're going to have your Will Smith, Chris Rock moment. And the way you respond to it, both husband and wife, the way you respond to it will determine how the rest of your marriage plays out. So that'll be it for today, people. Before I go, I'd like to give a couple shout outs. I'd like to give a big shout out to all my fans in the States, some bigger than others. Just to mention a few: Khadija, my number one fan; Sarita, my cousin Chris and his beautiful wife Rachel; my cousin Jeff and his beautiful wife Kiami; Linda, cousin of my wife; my other cousins to my wife's, John Paul and his wife; a few other people. There's too many of you guys. If I'm forgetting anyone, please forgive me. Everyone that lives in the States and listens to the audio version of the podcast. And also, I'd like to give a big shout out to all my listeners in Africa, especially the ones in Ghana. Most of you are my classmates. I'd like to give a big shout out to you guys. Those of you who give me feedback, I like that. Big shout out to you. I also have some listeners in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa. Big shout out to Melody in South Africa. Melody is my ex in South Africa. And for those of you who are watching this show that are in Africa, especially in South Africa, you need to check out Melody's page. She's a life coach. And if you go on my Facebook page, the James Carrington Podcast Show on Facebook, you will see on my timeline some of her videos, okay? And for all my listeners and Facebook followers in Asia, I need y'all to subscribe to the audio version of the show. Again, the audio podcast version is the one at the very top of the banner in the red, okay? So write that link down and get to the audio version of the show, subscribe to it. Again, we're on Apple Podcasts and we're on Google Podcasts, okay? There'll be, I do more audio than video, so, and the audio is highly entertaining and informative. And if you don't feel like, listening to the audio version, you just want to stick to the video, that's fine. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, click the subscribe button right now if you haven't done so. Also hit the like button, and don't forget to share the show with friends and family. And if you want to reach out to me for whatever reason, maybe there's something that I said you don't agree with, or there's something that I said that you think I need to emphasize more of, well, there's the WhatsApp number right there, okay? Just shoot me a quick text on WhatsApp or shoot me a voice note. If there's something that you want me to put on the airwaves the next time I'm on here or put in the audio podcast, I will be more than happy to play your voice note, but just shoot it up to the that number right there. Okay, guys? So that'll be all for today. I see my son is over there. I don't know what he wants to do. Maybe on the next episode, I'll let you guys talk to him. So until then, be good to each other. Don't do what I wouldn't do, and be safe out there.